There we go. Okay, so we were talking about Silver Lake and balloon tires on old bikes.
Yeah.
And is it true that at some point your mom had to go get you or something?
Well, that last year, it was, I was camping at Silver Lake, and I was there for several weeks. And in fact, in each year, well, the first 2 years, Mom would come up with the kids after I'd camped for a while and join me in camping.
Oh.
And so Dad stayed back to work. And the last year, Mom came up alone, and after I'd traveled around the Lake Michigan, and picked me up and all my gear and took me.
Because you were pretty tired by then, I would think.
Well, no, but she stayed with me a little bit, but not like it was before when she camped for an extended period. I did pretty well by myself. I was able to take the bicycle around Silver Lake to the east end of the sand dunes and walk across the sand dunes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you ever have blowouts or anything? Did you take extra tubes for your tires?
No.
Wow.
No, we weren't allowed any extras of any kind. And we're very lucky in that regard. But the last trip there, particularly, I had to ship my things ahead. I couldn't carry them on the bicycle.
Oh.
And so I built a wooden box to contain the camping gear, and had it rigged with some wheels on it, but I took the wheels off and put them inside the box to ship it. And then when I shipped it to Hart, and when it got to Hart, it was I'd shipped it ahead of me, so it was there waiting for me. I had to take the wheels out of the box and assemble them on the box, and then I had some sort of a tongue that came out of the box and attached to the back end of the bicycle.
Oh my gosh, that's ingenious.
And hauled that. The only problem with it was my axle really wasn't strong enough, and it bent a little bit and rubbed on the box.
Ooh.
And so I had to periodically get out and straighten the axle out in order to get it to Silver Lake.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
I needed a little engineering to understand that.
Well, that's good. That's good. You had enough in you at that time to figure it out, and that's probably how it all began, right? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Well, growing up before that, there was a lot of playing with friends out back at the Roselawn house, because it was a big field back there. And that field flooded in the springtime enough that we would build rafts and float across the pond there.
So you designed and built rafts.
Yeah, oh yeah. We played all sorts of games with them. Well, one of the things we did for rafts, I think it only lasted 1 year. Dad had gotten us from general stores, had sandboxes come in for kids, and they're made out of steel. So we'd take a steel box and use that for our raft.
Okay.
Other years we had to build our own raft.
Oh my gosh. That's wild. Did all the kids work at the general store?
No, not really. I think Herbie and well, Herbie did quite a bit. Yeah, of course he met Pa there. I remember a little bit. Margie did a little bit. She just had to get away from home, and so she worked a little bit, stocking merchandise, that sort of thing. Herbie worked quite a bit. He would go out like I did with Uncle Harry and pick up merchandise and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, we both did that.
It was quite a unique business.
Yeah.
How did your dad and brothers think it up? How did it come about?
Well, you know, I'm not entirely clear on that, but I know that Dad's father dealt with auctions. Businesses, particularly during the Depression years, businesses going out of business held auctions when they went. Just like you hold a garage sale auction now, you know, that sort of thing. And they'd buy out whatever was left after the auction.
Oh.
And stock the store with that sort of thing.
Okay.
They also had some regular products that they bought on the market from wholesalers. They'd buy some grocery items, particularly if the wholesaler had something that wasn't selling or excess supply of some. They'd buy the whole shebang at the end of their
That deep
sale.
discount, no doubt. Paint, I remember they had.
1936 or 35 or 36, I forget which year it was. There was a year like we had this year in Michigan, a big rainy season that flooded Pittsburgh. Downtown Pittsburgh got a very serious flooding. And Dad's brother Herb was a top guy and high up in the organization of the Harris stores downtown Pittsburgh. And their lower level got all flooded. And so Dad made a deal with them, and after the flood waters went down and before things started to mold, Harris stores put all that merchandise into a boxcar and sent it to Dad.
Wow.
At Michigan Central Depot. And Dad took all that wet clothing and shoes and whatever, mainly clothing though, and used his staff at the store to hang it up in the back end of the store on drying racks, and sold that for 25 cents on the dollar, something of that sort, you know.
Right. Wow.
Very, very cheap anyway. And during the depression years, people welcomed that sort of merchandise.
Yeah, you had family in Pittsburgh at one time. I mean, didn't your ancestors live there? And
ancestors moved to Pittsburgh about 1850. Yeah.
And so, how did you say Herb, his brother Herb, worked there at Harris? He stayed behind, and other brothers moved to Detroit. Is that what happened?
I think they were all born in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
Dad was born in Detroit, so I think all the rest of them were too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Herb migrated back there. One of grandfather's siblings, and he had, I think, 7 of them, was one of the part owners of the Harris store.
Okay.
And Herb finally acquired the financial interest in the Harris stores. At the time of the flood, I think Uncle Herb was like a vice president or something of that sort, but wasn't the top cat. But ultimately, before they sold the Harris stores, I think sometime around the Second World War.
How are we doing? Are we still going? Yes, we're still going. Okay. God, that's something. Second World War, so that went away.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came to Detroit and joined you guys? No, he stayed
Uncle
there?
Herb stayed there.
Okay.
He retired from, I think, from the Harris stores, and retired from there and had moved, I believe, to Florida for winter. And they lived in like a hotel type environment.
In Florida?
Wherever they went.
Oh, okay.
Must have had some connections or something. I know everybody had connections back then. Yeah.
So it was really your Uncle Ray and your dad that owned,
And
Harry.
Uncle Harry.
Harry. So
Harry
three of
was the
them.
buyer. Uncle Ray ran the extra store across Verner Highway from the main store and down 2 blocks. Or down a block, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it sold the large scale merchandise that Dad got and Harry brought in. I mean, from salvage from the railroads, they were major shippers of small items, which they don't do anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they call them LCL lots, or less carload lots.
Oh.
And they had a lot of damage on the railroads. And so they had a manager of the warehouse at Michigan Central Depot. There's a large freight depot downtown Detroit, right downtown. And they'd unload the damaged merchandise it was
Like
over short or damaged.
Okay.
If it's over the amount it should have been or under amount and rejected by the consignee, Harry would buy the whole lot for, again, $50 on the dollar, something like that,
So things like a refrigerator or a stove
anything,
or
anything. But in particular, big shipments came in before the holidays.
Oh.
And toys and that sort of thing were very prevalent there. I remember picking up truckloads of that kind of merchandise with Uncle Harry.
So did you always get toys from that shipment for Christmas?
No, not always. But when they were available, we sure did. We had a lot of nice things that came out of those shipments.
Funny. And the house that you built, that wild carpet that looked like movie theater carpet, did that come from General Stores? It had kind of green and black stripes, flecks through it. Do you remember it?
I don't remember that.
I bet you did.
The only carpet I remember we had on what was the name of our street?
Hazelwood?
No, not Hazelwood. The next street we moved to.
Winstead Court?
Winstead, yeah. On Winstead, you recall we had that
shag.
Yeah, shag carpeting.
Yeah.
Your mother even put it on the walls in the bathroom.
God, yes, I remember.
Yeah. and the big joke in that place was my friends would come in there and see Mom's bass violin in the bathtub.
Oh.
Just as a place for it to be.
That's funny. How did you meet Mom anyway?
We were both in school plays in high school.
Oh, in plays. Did you act?
No. Well, I had a couple minor acting things, but mainly I was backstage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you build scenery or just make it all work?
Yeah, we built and assembled all kinds of scenery. Yeah. and each year you had to start from new. You had no place to store it, of course, so you had to start all over, and you have to solicit items from members of the cast whose parents might lend us something to go on the stage, and had to arrange for those things to be put in place and to semi-protected so they don't walk off while we're there anyway. And the other job backstage was prompting.
Oh.
Had to prompt the actors because they didn't always get their lines quite straight. That was a job.
That's a job.
And was a replacement actor in a couple of plays. I don't remember what they were. What the heck were the name of the shows? I don't know.
Were they musical or theatrical?
Theatrical, yeah. They didn't. I don't recall we had any musical theater there. I can't recall it if we did.
Yeah, that's funny.
But they're all plays that had some educational history to them. So it seems to be like the Julius Caesar play of
Shakespeare.
Yeah, Shakespeare. And then something about a young man that would be of marriage age or that sort of thing, and I think I had a role in that for the guy.
Like a Streetcar Named Desire type play.
I can't tell you what type they are.
Yeah.
But they were supposed to be quite educational as well as being entertaining.
That's always good for a school play. That's always good. So who was the very first girl you ever dated?
Very first girl I ever dated? I never dated anybody until I was in high school and dated Patricia, and I dated Bonna's sister Joanne, who is now deceased.
Yeah.
I disappointed her that she had her eyes on marriage and I didn't.
No.
That was a
fiasco.
Well, there's some hard feelings there.
Oh.
Too bad.
Did she keep them for life? Did she ever forgive you?
Probably not.
Oh my gosh.
It's very cool after that. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what happens, you know.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
There was someone else named Perry. Didn't you? Who was Mrs. Perry in your life?
Oh, yeah. That's I dated her daughter. She had a daughter and a son. The son was serving in the military, and the daughter lived at home. And her name was. You're asking me.
You know, you were so close to the parents.
Yeah.
But not so much the girl. Huh?
Well, yeah, the mother really took a shine to me as as a
potential.
Yeah, as a potential. Yeah, for her daughter.
Grace.
Daughter,
no, that's the mother's name.
Grace Perry. Yeah.
It's the mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Don. Don Perry, the dad?
Yeah.
Why do I know that?
I don't know. Don Perry was a machinist.
Okay.
He was a tradesman or a machinist and worked for small machinery manufacturers in the Detroit area. Nice fellow. I never got terribly close to him because he was always at work whenever I was around.
Yeah.
But yeah. I can't pull
Well,
it up.
it'll come to you.
Yeah, I know it will.
Okay, so in your dreams as a teenager, did you dream of ever being anything else, like a pilot or a cowboy or an astronaut or something that kids dream of being?
No. Well, let me think. What did I dream of being? I think, frankly, I was, before I went to college, I think I was closest to being a person in the mercantile business, but
Because that's what you knew.
yeah, that's
Right.
what I knew. I really didn't know anything else.
Yeah, sure.
But no doctors or lawyers or anything like that.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Huh. And did your dad pay for your college?
He did.
That's great.
All of us kids.
Wow.
He put, of 7 kids, I think he put 6.
Even Marie had some school.
Marie didn't finish college there. She went to Wayne State for a year. Then it was not a university, it was a college.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy went to, let's see, she didn't go to university. Dick, Marjorie, and I graduated from University of Michigan.
And how about John?
And John.
Okay,
John
so
did too.
4 of you, wow.
4 of the 7.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was me, Dick, Marjorie, John.
Dorothy may have gone to Eastern.
And all of us, Dick and Dick graduated the same program I did from engineering, civil engineering. Marjorie graduated from physics, engineering physics. And then moved to California and got advanced degrees in physics and that sort of thing. I forget what her doctorate was in. It was something, it was biological physics. Yeah, there's a biological component of some sort.
Wow.
Got her PhD.
Dorothy went to teaching school.
John got a civil degree.
Aeronautical?
That's right, yes. Yeah, he graduated in aeronautical engineering and went to work for a company that built engines for airplanes, the turbines. And he got awfully tired of designing turbine blades. And then went to work for Dad at General Stores. And never did anything more until after the business was sold, and he went to work for the highway department in the Detroit area, doing surveying and inspecting construction.
Okay.
Dick got into the design end of transportation systems and was involved in the people mover that Ford was experimenting with.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit with that Detroit people mover. I'm not sure how that phased in, but maybe the same.
It was the prototype for the Detroit people mover for sure, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that.
And Marie was the toughest.
Oh, she was a rebellious one at home. She and Mom got into a lot of battles. And while I was away at school, at college, she suffered from a nervous breakdown. And Dad got her into a hospital that didn't do anything for her. they didn't understand mental illness at that time.
Mm-hmm.
They got into that shock treatment business,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they fried her brain in the process. That is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But at Wayne State, she went to Wayne State, yeah. And at Wayne State, she got into a bunch of pot smoking, drug
Really?
taking groups, yeah.
No kidding. Back
Yeah.
then?
Yeah, yeah. She was rebellious. And she didn't finish, I think I don't even know if she finished a year, but I think she did. I think she finished a year and didn't do any more.
Mm-hmm.
Very bright girl, though.
Yeah, sure.
Academically in high school, she was very bright.
And did she meet her husband in college or after?
Afterwards, yeah, they were motorcycle riders.
Oh, she was rebellious, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, they doing all sorts of crazy things. And I think it was through acquaintances in college that she got into that kind of a group.
Mm-hmm.
But her husband was, I think, quite a bit older than she was.
Oh.
And of course, more prone to piling up motorcycles, I guess, than she was.
Isn't that something?
Oh, terrible.
So, when did you realize you could sing? Because you sing lovely. Maybe you don't sing so much anymore, but I remember as a kid on long car trips, you and Mom were just singing away in the front seat.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we would.
Yeah.
But
you were a natural. You didn't have lessons or anything.
No, I didn't. I had no lessons, and anything I could sing, I had a voice for it, kind of, but it needed a lot of training to be a good voice.
You were always in tune, though.
Yeah,
That's important.
But I couldn't read a note of music.
Oh, really? Never could?
And in fact, Norm used to be on the glee tub at the university.
Sure.
And he told me not too long ago that he could never read a note of music. He just sang along with the group.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
I thought it surprised me too.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true. He never took the lessons or anything.
Yeah.
How would he?
No.
Yeah, so I guess it was just Ed and me that could read a note or two.
Yeah.
That's funny. You've always liked music. What was your favorite kind back then? When you were like a teenager, did you get into early rock and roll or show tunes or what?
Just whatever was on the radio, is what kids do.
Yeah.
My first encounter with music was at the University of Michigan.
No.
Yeah. And my first record that I ever bought was Rhapsody in Blue.
See? First and best.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
That was a nice one.
That's funny because if I were to say what kind of music did your dad like, I would say Gershwin. That's how I associate you.
I like Porgy and Bess. I love that. Yeah.
That's beautiful stuff. What was your first car?
First car? Dad arranged with Uncle Harry that I would have a car on campus, and a car that Harry was, rather than trading in, Dad must have bought from him or something, but Dad always told me, be careful now, this is Uncle Harry's car.
Oh, that's a good thing to tell a kid, though. You have to be careful, it's not your car.
Yeah.
What, do you remember what make it was?
It was a GM, I think. I'm not sure. It wasn't a Ford, I know that.
No.
It was a coupe.
Mm.
Big trunk in the back.
What color?
Tell you a story about a big trunk in the back.
Oh, yeah.
We used to like to, in my high school years, like to take rides out to the parks, the state parks, and around the state of Michigan. Never. Well, I did get out of one after that car ceased to be my car. I had it at the university, and talked to some of the guys into taking a ride up to the Copper Country.
Oh, up here.
Yeah, and I liked the Copper Country. I had been there before with Dad on a camping trip one time. I liked it, and we saw some beautiful country on the trip. But my story is, we got to the Mackinac City, and we had to take a ferry boat across, and they were charging by the passenger plus the car. So I think I had 3 guys along with me, something like that. So I drove it, and they crawled into the trunk and we went across. Once we got on the ferry boat, I opened up the trunk and they can get out. But to get on the ferry boat, I had 3 guys in the trunk and I was driving.
Oh. God, it's a good thing they didn't suffocate or something.
Oh no, this is well ventilated.
Okay.
Back there.
That's you guys, you little rascals.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let's see, where am I in my questions?
Another time I used, it wasn't with that car, that one was with a sedan I borrowed from Dad. And we had, I was in college, and I was supposed to be the incoming president of the American Society of Civil Engineers chapter at our college in Michigan.
Oh.
And they had a annual conference in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh.
And I had 3 other guys that wanted to take a ride with me to Raleigh, North Carolina. But I also had my good friend Les Rice, and he wanted to take a ride to Raleigh, North Carolina. So I crowded the back seat, and Les actually started out laying across their legs.
No.
In the back seat.
Oh,
somehow they adjusted things as we went along, and he didn't stay in that position.
Oh my God.
I think, yeah, and I think the deal was that I was able to crowd 3 people in the front seat. We didn't have the central console, so it was just.
Wow.
That's
a carload.
That
Road
was-
trip, huh?
And Lester was so concerned that he had to go to that trip. Why, I don't know. But I accommodated him.
Oh, people like to travel, I guess.
Yeah.
Road trips are fun.
Yep.
Oh, well, that's kind of fun.
Yep.
So being the president of that chapter, was that your first foray into politics?
No, it didn't last, because I actually graduated during the summer term because of the Korean War.
Oh.
And I was interested in getting employed to see if there's any way I can keep out of the draft. There wasn't.
No. They gotcha.
My employer that is on the draft board saw to it that I got drafted.
Yeah, that's not lucky. Oh, but at least you got a good assignment out of
I
it.
did. Yeah, I have no regrets for having served, even though as a new graduate, I didn't have that in mind as a career. And
I know.
thought I'm going to lose a couple of years of valuable years.
Yeah, was it hard to come back and go to the master's program after?
No.
That was easy.
No, it's just a continuation of the bachelor's program, but more advanced. Got into suspension bridges,
Oh.
designing those. Got into some what today would be laughable as far as design techniques, but road design and bridge design, you had to, if you're taking vehicles across it, you had to use a design load that moved across the bridge, and so you had to know what the effect of that movement was going to change as far as the stresses on the various members of the structure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you had to use those kinds of diagrams to diagram how the load on a particular member was going up or down or whatever.
And what trickle effect that might have.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep.
Complicated.
Yeah, it was. But now, with computers, you don't do those things anymore.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. How was it being a graduate student and being a married graduate student? Was that any different?
I had to split myself between 3 enterprises.
Yeah, right. Working and school and mom.
Yeah.
And then I came along after you graduated, right?
I graduated in 53, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. And the first house I remember is out on Pontiac Trail. Was that the first house you guys?
That's the first house we got in Ann Arbor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We rented that upstairs apartment.
When I was born.
Hmm?
The one I was born in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were born in 55. Yeah, we were there. Then, well, no, you were brought up. Yeah, you were born out on the Pontiac Trail. The apartment before that was where Jackson Road splits from Dexter Road. There's a crossover road in the middle, and there's a house sitting on that had an upper story that we rented as a resident first. And
that's one street over from where Tom Fitzgerald and his wife Kathy live.
Yeah.
Is that funny?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's interesting.
Yeah. They just are selling that house and they bought a new one out kind of on the way to Dexter in a pretty neighborhood.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But they lived there a long time.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. I might be running out of questions here. No, not yet. Oh, here's a funny question. Did you ever know that your dad was proud of you as you accomplished things?
Oh, yeah.
He was good about telling you that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, yeah. A lot of positive reinforcement. There was a lot of negative reinforcement, too, when I screwed up. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
He kept you on the straight and narrow, huh?
Yeah, he did. He was good positive, though. He really wanted to make him happy.
I seem to remember that you discovered a file of clippings about yourself that he kept after he passed away. I think you discovered the file. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I remember that, but he seemed to have been proud of you. I just didn't know if he ever told you.
Yeah, oh yes, he did. In fact, I had one occasion. Well, I was I was in politics. It was sometime in the 67, 74 era that while I was in elective politics, that his American Legion post across the street from General Stores, he belonged to the Legion, and they decided that they wanted to honor him with a presentation and invited me to be the speaker. And so I gave a little appreciation of my father's influence on my life, and what he stood for, and
that's cool.
pretty good little speech, as I remember, because it was very well received. And they gave me an American flag on a standard that I kept in my offices as we moved around.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
That was a nice flag.
Yeah.
It was too tall to fit into a house, but it was perfect for the offices. So I
Aw,
used it in the office all the time.
that is so perfect.
Yeah.
So, what was your first foray into politics?
Well, my first foray into politics was in engineering when I was meeting with city councils and boards, regulatory agencies, the EPA and that sort of thing. After I got in politics, I had to actually go to Washington to meet with EPA people on broad scale amendments to the legislation they were thinking about, this, that, the other thing. So that's really what got me into politics. And I got interested and active in the Republican Party in Ann Arbor and met a lot of Republicans there and liked working with them on campaigns, learning how campaigns were run. And at that time, a lot different now. But
Can you even imagine running now? And how much money and how much advertising you have to do?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You need to do the same thing we had to do, though, is to be out and about and meet and
Yeah, you have to network with people.
yeah, you had to know people and know what their problems were and what you're dealing with politically. And in that activity, I became the city chairman of the Republican Party, and it was my first campaign was when Romney was first running for governor. We had the Pat and the girls all dressed up in Ray Smith uniforms.
Yeah. I have pictures.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Yeah.
And that was a good activity. Riding in Dee's convertible.
Later my convertible for a little while until I wrecked it.
Yeah. Did you wreck it?
Well, I burned it out on the highway. Do you remember?
No.
I used to take it up to Michigan State, especially to visit my boyfriend who went up there, Tim Berkery.
Oh, yeah.
And I would drive 85 miles an hour at least.
Wow.
And I would get stopped, but you put your license plate on my car, the REP053 license plate. So I would get a courteous warning, which was a godsend. But I never checked the oil. I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
So going 85 miles an hour back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then one day smoke.
Yeah. Burned her up.
Yeah, burned her up. And I think you took it to your brother Herb, and he said,
It's gone.
It's gone.
You can't afford that.
I loved that car, so that was such a shame.
Yeah. Well, today probably Herb would tinker around with it and change the valves and the pistons, have them ground out and keep running.
Keep it running. Isn't that the way?
Things change.
Yeah. So running for state rep was your first actual campaign. That's the first and last office.
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted to do anything after that? Or did you just want to get back into business?
Well, I took a hard look at running for Congress and decided that it really wasn't something I wanted to dedicate that much effort to.
It's a different road.
Marvesh was a congressman from the area, and Marv was himself thinking of running for something more, but wasn't at that time that I was no longer a legislator. And my good friend and professor, Jack Borchard, got me in touch with McNamee, Porter, and Seeley and recommended that they hire me, and they did. John Holland was very instrumental in that, too.
Yeah, and that turned out to be a good thing.
Yeah, it worked out well. I had first entertained the thought of going back to Ayers Lewis, but they didn't really want me back. They were making the terms of getting back very, very stiff.
Oh, that's not
something
good.
I wasn't willing to get into.
Yeah.
So McNamee said, "You work with us for a year, and everything works out, we'll put you in line to be a principal." Their way of doing it was more business-like than McNamee had set up, or that Ayers Lewis had set up. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. So when did your love of the water develop? Boats.
Oh my. That's a good question. Well, I always enjoyed boating when Dad would take me out fishing or something, you know, out of Silver Lake.
Or Patterson Lake.
Or Patterson Lake, yeah. Well, I was older and I bought my own boat.
The white one that I remember?
I think so. It was a wood boat.
Wood, yeah.
Yeah. And I had to repair the dry rot in the front of it. I did that in the front yard of the house, you know. I had to tear all that rotten wood out and put outdoor plywood in.
Do you remember how much you bought that boat for, with all that work you had put into it? It must have been cheap, or you wouldn't have.
It was.
You wouldn't have rebuilt it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. I think I was on a trip up in the Traverse City area, and just north of Traverse City is a little Frankfurt. It wasn't in Frankfurt, but there's a town on the south end of that one leg of the lake that they're on, and on that south end there's a boat repair place that had one for sale sitting out front, and I decided to buy it.
Oh my gosh. Well, we sure had a lot of fun in that. Yeah. Yeah, I learned to water ski behind that boat.
Yeah, right.
In mushy Patterson Lake.
Yeah, you didn't want to go in the water.
I didn't. It was imperative that I get up on skis and out of the muck.
Exactly.
But I remember you having to treat the bottom, fiberglass it every year.
Well, but after I replaced the rotten wood, I fiberglassed the whole bottom, and to further protect it. And I had to a couple times go over some places and needed a little bit of cutting out some of it. See, the lapstrake boat isn't a smooth hull on the outside. You remember, it's the boards overlap.
Boards, yeah.
And in that overlap, sometimes it left a little void there in the bottom.
Yeah.
I had to cut those out and reapply fiberglass to them.
Wow, a labor of love for you, though.
Yeah.
Because by then you were hooked, right? You loved boats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what the deal was, but I made my own trailer out of something or other.
No.
Yeah, my own boat trailer. And the boat didn't always stay on it quite right. one time out on the highway in front of our subdivision there on Jackson Road, the boat, I was coming back from
Patterson.
Patterson Lake, and the boat slipped off the trailer onto the shoulder side of the road. I had to pull over, and then I don't remember what I did, but I had to somehow get it back up and on the trailer again to get it home. It didn't have a proper support of the bottom on the underside of the trailer. My homemade trailer let me down there.
So did that convince you to buy a real trailer? No, probably not.
I don't think so. I really don't think I did until I bought my next boat with a trailer. Yeah.
And what was your next boat?
God, I can't remember what I got.
I know. How many boats have you had, do you think?
Well, I've had multiple boats at one time. You know, Donna says she got tired of cleaning bathrooms and 6 bathrooms?
Oh, yeah.
Cleaning the boat bathrooms,
The house bathrooms.
the house, the cottage, the place in Florida. Just always cleaning bathrooms.
So when did sailing become your passion?
Well, I can't say it was ever a passion, but I kind of liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a social thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we were at Portage Lake. I first got into the sunfish and sailed that, and then I see the competitive sailing, and so I kind of dipped my hand into it a little bit, but Norm's the guy that really got me going into sailing. He enjoyed competitive sailing a lot, as he still does.
Yeah, although he told me he's not doing it this year so much without Laura to sail with him.
Yeah. He's still got the big boat, I suppose.
He does, but I think he's selling it. Yeah, because Joan doesn't really want to so much anymore. So, but probably all the angles to the wind applied to your engineering skills, did it?
Well, not much. No, I just kind of read a lot of stuff on sailing, though. I tried to learn how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you learned.
Yeah, we had some good times.
Yeah.
I dumped a few times, too. Donna can tell you.
Yeah, that's all the excitement of the thing.
Norm and I were in a regatta. Where were we? A sailing regatta. God, I can't remember where it was. It was like up. Oh, I know. You know, in Michigan, along west of Ann Arbor and south of Ann Arbor, there's that along the old US 12. There's a bunch of recreational lakes, and they were having and the one is, I think, actually a chain of lakes down there.
Like the Irish Hills area.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was down there, and Norm and I were in the regatta, and we were out practicing something or another. Anyway, something happened. I don't, Norm can tell you better than I can. He was at the helm, and something went overboard. A life jacket or a cushion or something or another. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, I took a dive right off the boat into the water to fetch it. And some other boat had to come alongside and help retrieve me for some reason. I don't know why, but I think Norm was having a problem navigating the boat back to where I was. So another boat came and it gave me help to get back to norm. But we were in the race until then, and then we're out of the race.
Yeah.
I hit the water.
Oops. Oh my goodness. Well, that club at Portage Lake has turned into a really nice thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's built up a little bit more, and the restaurant is nice, and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I was just out there last week. I saw our cottage.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was visiting. Do you remember Dave Morton, who lived with us for part of a year?
Yeah.
He happens to live in his parents' cottage for the moment. He's divorcing a wife in Florida, I think. He moved back up here, and he has a stockbroker type job that he does from his home.
Oh.
So he's living in his parents' cottage on Half Moon Lake.
Oh.
And he lives right near my friend Nancy, Crazy Nancy the psychic.
Oh.
And so she was talking to a friend of mine, and I went over and visited with him, and then we went and looked at a cottage she might want to rent on Portage Lake. And so we were there, so I said, let's stop. And no one was home, so we went down the deck and looked out front and saw the cottage.
Oh, good.
I know.
Oh,
It was fun. It was cute.
oh, a lot of
Yeah.
memories there.
Yeah.
Lots of memories.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Good place. And you bought that place super cheap too, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I never bought it. Dad bought it.
No, not Patterson.
Oh.
Portage.
Oh, Portage. Oh,
Yeah.
God, yes. Oh, yeah. Bought that thing for, I think, at the time was a pretty good price, but it seems to me it was 1,800 or something like that.
Oh
I
my
don't know.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
It was during a downtime of selling.
Yeah.
cottages. Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it right.
Yeah. Put a lot of work into it over the years, though.
Some gal who was a spinster lady used to come there with her sister, and her sister passed or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they wanted to sell it. And they lived in a town in not Minnesota, somewhere out there, maybe. Names. I
But-
can't remember the name.
But they would come all the way to Portage Lake
Yeah,
for
yeah,
their little vacations, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It was, it seemed to me it was either Minnesota or South Dakota or something in that area.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when did your love of trains develop?
Wow. Well, we had one running behind the house at Roselawn, so
Right behind the house?
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's a big field between the house and the train. where
Okay.
We ran our little boats.
Oh yeah. That's where you made your boat.
Yeah.
And so you'd hear a train every day go by?
Usually every day, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a little railroad that connected Ford Rouge to Ford Highland Park plants.
Oh, okay.
And they had some customers along the way they served also, like Miss Lee Coal Company was one. And then behind the house was that Chinese La Choy plant. They prepared La Choy chop suey, and
I didn't know that was in Detroit.
yeah,
How funny.
yeah, it was right behind the house. They filled in behind the store, or behind the factory. The factory faced this what's the end street there? Schoolcraft. Yeah, I think it's Schoolcraft. They faced Schoolcraft, and then they filled behind the building, and that was about 4 or 5 houses down from our Roselawn address. So we still had a big area out there, but with that area filled, we got more water in our little pond back there. So
Okay.
we were able to sail bigger boats.
Yeah. That's how your love of boats developed, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So trains and boats in your backyard, that's pretty good.
yeah. I don't know how. Well, now let's think. Uncle Harry got me next to a lot of trains and getting up merchandise.
Mm.
Well, I was dating Joanne at the time, and her dad was an engineer on switching locomotives on New York Central, which crossed Livernois
Oh.
down between us and General Stores. The crossing would be just north of General Stores, half mile, something like that. Yeah, north and west. But anyway, Joanne arranged to drop me off at Livernois and the train tracks, bridge. There's a bridge goes over Livernois. Drop me off there and climb up the bank and get on the locomotive with her dad. And so I had my first train ride.
Wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm always fascinated with trains. Toy trains, you know, I started out with toy trains when I was about 6 years old when Dad's dad presented me with a standard gauge train set.
Oh.
And there you stick the tracks together and make a circle, and it was a locomotive and 3 passenger cars. And I had a transformer. And it wasn't until after the war production that Dad got some HO stuff in the store, and I was able to have an HO gauge, which is easier to handle and much smaller, half the size of an O gauge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the one Grandpa gave me was an O gauge.
Oh. Wow.
I at the time he gave me that, I was about 6 years old, I think, and playing out in the backyard with sandbox. I started running the train around the sandbox, and that screwed it up pretty good. No more train.
Yeah.
I still had them, but they wouldn't run.
Yeah.
That's when I got into the HO thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then the upper story of the house burned down, and I later realized that the reason it burned down, I didn't know that until just a few years ago, that I had gone to intermediate school, Tappan, and I was a little late for school. And I went to school and left the transformer on, and back then they didn't have circuit breakers in them. Something was off the track and something overheated and started a fire.
Wow.
I'm sure that's what happened,
Yeah.
although nobody ever told me.
No.
But I know Dad was really pissed. So that's when I think about things in that perspective, I know what happened.
Wow. And nobody was hurt though.
No, very nice that somebody in La Choy plant noticed that there was smoke coming out of the house and alerted Mother to get out of the house with the baby. She had a baby then.
Oh. And all the rest of you were at school.
Yeah, I think it must have been Margie or Dorothy, one of the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, she only had one baby at home, so must have been 6. It must have been Dorothy. I can't be sure.
Yeah. Wow. So but you rebuilt the upstairs?
Dad did.
Yeah. Himself?
He got some professional help, but a lot of it was friends.
Wow.
I think he had Tom Langen, his buddy, had some friends. Tom was out on Northwestern Highway and ran a gas station at that time, which serviced cars also. He later got into the bowling business, had a bowling alley. But Tom Langen was a lifelong friend of Dad's. Dad took a trip to Ireland with Tom.
When before they were married? Like
No,
early?
no, this was much more recent than that. That would be post-war.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a picture in our archive somewhere of Dad at the, what's it called? The stone.
The Blarney Stone?
Blarney Stone. Being hung way over the chasm to kiss the Blarney Stone.
Isn't that funny? I can't picture him doing that. He was such a quiet, serious guy to me. But that's fun to think about.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. Huh. So I remember then you got Norm the train layout with the table that dropped in the Hazelwood house. That was cool. So you've always had that love in you.
Yeah. Always an interest.
That's funny. Oh, there's something so magical and romantic about the railroads.
Yeah.
They take you places, huh? It's so fun. Well, that's all the questions I have, Dad.
Boy, that's a bunch.
Anything else you'd like to share?
I think I've shared about everything.